So a few months ago I tried doing a video talking about paranormal experiences I've had, and the format just wasn't there. It didn't really fit me, but I've wanted to do more of that because I've had quite a few experiences with this sort of thing. So I'm on Twitter, and Shadow, aka my Miss Kylie, had put out a thing like, hey, tell me some of your experiences with the Ouija board. And I thought, it's a perfect opportunity to make a video. So I let her know I was going to do this. So this one goes out to her. I've got 2 Ouija board stories for you. So when I'm a kid, we had my mother's old Ouija board, and we'd play around with it, me and my sister and some of our friends. And, you know, weird stuff happened, but nothing really worth mentioning. Till summer of '93. This is the year we moved from Iowa to Wisconsin, and for the summer we had sold the house we had, and we were renting this house just outside of Waverly, Iowa. And my sister had knee surgery. She had injured her knee at school in PE class. So one of her friends was staying with us to help take care of her and help out with, around the house and everything. And we'd be messing with the Ouija board. And one day it told us that it was this young kid, and I can't remember the name of the child, but we really kind of need a name to make this easy to follow. So we'll say Tom Jones, despite the fact that this is going to get really unusual. So kid tells us his name's Tom Jones. He's like 6 years old, that his family used to live there, and that he died. He got sick and really cold in the winter and died. And we had asked, like, what are you doing right now? And he says something like, I'm petting the bed. And we all laughed, and then we all kind of looked at the corner of the bed, and you could see, like, the quilt on the bed, and it looked like somebody doing this on it. So that was creepy. But he never seemed threatening. And sometimes we'd get on and we'd be like, hey Tom, are you there? And he'd be like, yes. And we'd be like, we'll do something to prove it. And I think one of my favorite ones, let me grab a candle or something off this altar. He says, watch the candle. So we got this candle, and it's like sitting up next to my sister's TV on a completely flat surface on her dresser, and it starts spinning, and it slides all the way down to the end of the dresser, and we're all just kind of sitting there like, and I'm the youngest one there, but I'm like, could have been anything, It's not too unusual, and then it reverses and it spins all the way back to where it originally was. So that was pretty weird. And we started noticing things would happen at night in this house. Like, it would sound like somebody was walking back and forth in the hallway, or there was like a suspended staircase that led up to the second floor, and you really hear when people are on it, and it sounded like somebody would walk up and down the steps at night. Some days we'd hear what would sound like a ball, like being thrown against the wall, like, hitting the wall and then bouncing down and then off the ground, and it would just do that. But the weirdest one was we had an organ. Me and my sister both were taking organ lessons at the time, because it's a small town in Iowa. We both wanted to get into music. Only musician in the town was the church organist, so she was teaching us to play. So we had our organ, and he had this dust cover, and this dust cover was really like clunky type of thing. So you would hear like through the whole house if somebody opened or shut that. And you'd be laying in bed at night, hearing all these weird noises, and a couple times you'd hear the dust cover open. And because it was this old organ with like vacuum tubes, you'd hear it turn on. The a lot of like the old vacuum tube amplifiers will do. You'd hear it turn on, and you'd hear that. And sometimes it would play a little bit. Then you'd hear it shut off, and then you'd hear the dust cover close. And stuff like that. Really creepy, but never threatening. And we told my mom about it. We told her, the kid said his name was Tom Jones or whatever. And she was like, yeah, that was the family that lived here like 50 years ago or something. She's like, I don't know anything about like what happened, but the name was correct, and they had a son, named Tom or whatever his name actually was. So one day we're like, hey, let's talk to Tom, and he's not acting right. He says he's Tom, but he's not. He's clearly not. We figure this out, and then the thing starts saying, no, I'm not Tom. Tom is gone. He's never coming back. You have to deal with me now and stuff like that. Starts making like threats and stuff, and we didn't believe it. And all this activity in the house got worse. It was all kind of the same stuff, but it would happen more frequently. And like you'd hear them walking up and down the hall, but it didn't sound like light kid footsteps anymore. They were like heavy footsteps, and sometimes you hear like heavy breathing. And I've always dealt with insomnia and such, which is why I work nights now. And I would just lay in bed hearing this all night. I did not sleep much at all that summer, I was usually up at night anyway, but this was like really the start of it for me. one of the things that happened to me is there was this room in the house. Not really a room, like a hallway, but it's like this kind of L-shaped right angle type of hallway. It connected like one of the entry points of the house where there's like a big family room, and then you went through this thing and you were in like the kitchen. It's like a laundry room kitchen type thing. And the whole thing, it was a pantry. It was like a walk-through pantry because it was like ceiling to floor cabinets. And these were huge cabinets, like I could climb inside of them. More than once, I'd walk in there, I'd get this eerie feeling, turn around, and all the cabinet doors would be open. Now, keep in mind, I'm 9 years old. I can't reach the ones up top. I could barely reach the ones in the middle of the wall. They're all open. And I'd freak out, and I'd go get my sister's friend, and I'd be like, hey, like all the cabinets are open. You've got to see this. And she'd go down with me, and they'd all be closed. But there was only the three of us in the house, and they'd just all be shut. That happened multiple times. There was a really bad storm one night. It's like a wind and hail, and a lot of the farms area really got hit bad. A couple of barns got completely flattened. But we were playing with the Ouija board that night, and the thing said something like, because we told the thing, go away, we just want to talk to Tom or whatever, and it was like, no, you're talking to me, and we, basically told it off, and it said something like, now I'll make you pay, and this bad storm came in, and we had a couple of trees on our property falling, but we were fine. Like, the house was fine. It was like a lot of the neighbors, like, windows blown out, trees falling down onto like vehicles. A couple of the barns got completely flattened in the area, and our area was fine. And it was so weird that we were okay, even though it was like threatening us. Like, it threatened us, and the storm came in. But one thing that always struck me as very strange is, me and my sister were always big fans of horror movies, and we used to love the Amityville movies. And this isn't going to seem strange to you, but let me get there. So there was like this crawl space in the back of the house. It was basically like a closet, but it was unfinished. It was this really long thing, so we joked it was basically the attic. And it was off of the master bedroom. We didn't really spend any time like exploring the house too much. I mean, this is a huge house, but one day we decided to go check it out because there was stuff in there. And we find in there a dollhouse, and it's a perfect replica of this farmhouse that we're staying at, which that's cool, but also kind of weird at the same time. And my sister's like, this is just like that one Amityville movie. And me and her friend are like, what are you talking about? She goes, where they found like the dollhouse of the Amityville house, and then the dollhouse was also possessed, and all that stuff would happen. And we're both, me and my sister's friends, like, that's not a movie. And my sister was just insisting, yes, it was. It was one of the Amityville movies. There is an Amityville dollhouse. And according to Internet Movie Database, that came out like in 95 or 96, I believe it was. This all happened in 93. So, might seem kind of insignificant, but really weird that my sister was like, yeah, that was an Amityville movie. That was almost the exact same thing that's going on here. And at the time, it's like, no, it's not. And nobody else knew about it but her. So, we didn't know about closing the board down and all that. Like, setting the board to goodbye. That probably was a lot of the issues we had. We probably left everything open, and it was letting whatever get through. So, we go to move away. And before we left the house the morning we were moving to Wisconsin, I took the board and I threw it in the trash. We get to Wisconsin, there's the board. Didn't think anything of it. It was like, my dad probably saw it in the trash or whatever and grabbed it out of there and threw it in the truck or something. So we're moving from our first house in Wisconsin to our second house. I was like, gotta throw this out again. Threw the thing out. It shows up at the second house. Okay. Probably the same thing. Probably like my dad or my mom or whatever saw it and grabbed it. So we had an unfinished basement. Me and my dad were finishing it. We're putting up the sheetrock, and my dad went to do something else. I don't remember. He was like getting lunch or whatever, and I was like, I'll finish this up because we're almost done doing this one wall. I had like one piece of sheetrock to put up, and I was like, you know what? I have an idea. So I go in the other room, grab the Ouija board. I'm looking at it. It's there. Pull it out of the box. Everything's there. I stick it in the wall, put the piece of sheetrock up, seal it all down. It's in the wall. Don't think anything of it. Till about 3-4 years ago, and my dad was moving back to Iowa, and he calls me up. He's like, I've got your mom's old Ouija board. I've tried to give it to your sister, but she said she's afraid of the thing, but she said you might take it. And I says, you don't have the Ouija board. He goes, yeah, I've got it right here. He goes, do you want it? And I was like, if you have it, I'll take it, but you don't have it. He says, yeah, dude, like, I've got it right here. And I said, look, I put that. I was like, remember when we did the wall almost 20 years ago? I'm like, I sealed it up inside the wall when you want to wait for lunch or whatever. I was like, I'm the only one who knew about it. We never took those pieces of sheetrock down. And my dad says, no, that's creepy, but I've got it right here. Do you want it? So, okay, I'll take it. So I just kind of came to this conclusion that I cannot get rid of this board, and I'm going to have to hold on to it. And that's fine. But the second story. So the board hadn't worked right since the incident in '93. And I just kind of had it in a glass case on display. And my nephew comes over, I believe it was New Year's. It's either Christmas or New Year's. I believe it was a New Year's. And he was joking around about it. And he's like, I kind of want to mess with it, but I kind of don't want to. And I was like, it probably won't work right anyway. I says, I think something's attached to it. It's just not going to work right. And he says, he's like, we should use it and see if we can contact Zozo. Zozo's a whole other thing. I'm not going to get into an explanation of it. That's one to Google. But Zozo's, I guess the basic explanation is this entity that a lot of people have met on the Ouija board. So I was like, yeah, okay, if you really want to, we'll try it. I was like, probably nothing's going to happen. So we pull it out. We go, is anybody there? And it right away goes to yes. And like, we're barely touching the planchette. Neither one of us, we're clearly not pushing it around. And we're like, what should we call you? And it starts doing the Zozo thing. Z-O, Z-O, Z-O. We tell it to stop. And we're like, are you really Zozo? And it said yes. And we're like, why are you here? And it goes, the tall one. Like, my nephew's like a foot taller than me, so it was like the tall one. And it was like, didn't even call us by name. We're like, you can leave now. And, okay. And went to goodbye. Throughout the night, though, we kept messing with it. We kept getting weird things. But one thing that happened, like every other entity that supposedly came through it, told us it was something called a dengoge. We'll never forget that. They'd always say, I'm one of the dengoge. We'd ask, is that your name? And it would say, no, it's a rank or something like that. So we said, are there more than one? And they would always say there are 6,000 of us. Every time we'd ask, what is a dengoge? It would respond with an ass. We thought that was funny. On 2 occasions we said, dengoge is a cool name. Could we use that as the name of a band? And it said no. And in both cases when we said why, it spelled out hate. But every last one we'd say, why are you here? And it would actually call my nephew by name and be like, death. And we'd say, well, when's he going to die? And it would say, tonight. And we'd say, how? And it would say, APA, A-P-A, APA. And we're like, what's APA? And it would say, curse. We encountered like 5 or 6 of these, and they all said the same thing. Like, they were different in how they said things, like how they spoke or whatever, but those couple of things, there were 6,000 of them. The dengoge is an ass. You can't use a name because of hate. And my nephew, who knew by name, unlike Zozo, was going to die that night from a curse called APA. So my nephew's this big dude, and he was working at this dairy plant, so he's accustomed to the cold. And like, there are times we'd be outside in the winter, it's like 10 below, and he's wearing like shorts and a t-shirt and like open-toed sandals, and he's fine. And he tells me he's like sitting there shivering. He's super cold. I like covered him in blankets. He's just freezing. And like, you touch him and he felt normal, but you could tell he wasn't. He's like, this is like he goes, it feels like my bones are cold. And this is a guy who spends like 8 hours a day in a dairy freezer, where so why is he suddenly this cold? And we're talking about it. He goes, I think I have whatever. He's like, whatever APA is, I think I've got that. I was like, I said it was a curse. I'm like, we could probably ward it off. And he says, how? I was like, you can use salt or sometimes rice to purify things. But it's like, I don't really know what to do. So for some reason, we got this idea to build a blanket for it. No kidding. Pull the couch cushions off, put them on, put the blankets over it. We built a blanket for it. He went in there. We put made it like a ring around the whole thing, a combination of salt and rice. And then me and my nephew and the dog went in this blanket for it. We ended up falling asleep in there. And we got up the next day and everything was fine. But he was telling me, I think they put some kind of curse on me because I thought I was going to die from APA. So I was like, you ever want to use the Ouija board again? He looks at me, he's like, hell no. He goes, you just keep that thing in the glass case. So it wasn't all bad though, because there was one person that came through that board that night. They said they were my mother. And the way they talked, the way they spelled it was brief. It was maybe like 2 to 3 minutes that our interaction, but I legit think it was my mother. And she was like, I just wanted to wish you guys like Happy New Year. And we said something like, Dad's getting remarried. And she says yes. And we're like, is that okay with you? And she says, of course. And it spelled out the name of the woman my dad was marrying, because it was somebody both my parents had known years ago. And it says something like she's a good woman. I'm happy for him or something. And it was just like, I have to go. I love you both. Goodbye. And that was it. So gonna end that one on a high note. Quite possibly spoke to my mother like that one last time. So the night wasn't all bad. And so I'm one of those people, I'll tell you, like, the Ouija board itself isn't evil. It's just a tool, if it even works, which I believe it does, but who knows? There's so many explanations for why it might be doing what it's doing, but they're not always bad. But if you're going to use them, do your research, take some precautions, and always go to goodbye at the end, because you don't know what kind of stuff you're inviting into your home then, or if it'll attach itself to the board. So those are my stories. I've got some other paranormal stories. Hopefully we get to those, and I'll see you next time.